Grabe. Para kahit kagabi, willing naman po kaming alisin namin on our own. Para hindi rin nasira yung material. Sakit po kasi sa puso. At ambagan ng mga kabataan yan para sa bayan.
The campaign posters are the properties of the owners who posted them on their private properties. Therefore, the right to use the said property is protected by the said provision of the Constitution.
And you just saw clips from volunteers of presidential aspirants as they captured on video Comelec officials taking down campaign materials within private properties. Oplan Baklas, which began Wednesday, is the poll body's program to dismantle campaign paraphernalia which do not adhere to the Comelec's rules.
But things took a turn for the worse after several reports of posters and tarpaulins on private properties and headquarters were being removed as well. Critics point out to a 2015 Supreme Court ruling, which they say strengthens the argument that the Comelec has no jurisdiction over posters on private properties. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Edlin Gao. You're watching The Big Story. The Comelec's move to crack down on what it calls illegal campaign paraphernalia is coming under fire. On Thursday, the camps of several presidential aspirants questioned moves by the Comelec to dismantle campaign paraphernalia that are inside private property.
At least one presidential aspirant is now considering taking legal action, saying the Comelec's actions constitute trespassing and tramples on freedom of speech. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
On Wednesday, authorities in Santiago City, Isabela, tore down election paraphernalia inside the headquarters of volunteers for presidential candidate Leni Robredo.
Grabe. Para kahit kagabi, willing naman po kaming alisin namin on our own. Para hindi rin nasira yung material. Sakit po kasi sa puso. At ambagan ng mga kabataan yan para sa bayan.
Comelec personnel explained that the campaign paraphernalia were larger than those allowed under the Comelec Resolution 10730, which limits campaign posters to 2 feet by 3 feet. On Thursday, Robredo's camp registered its protest, saying this also happened in other parts of the country like Metro Manila. Robredo's lawyers insist Comelec only has jurisdiction over election paraphernalia that are posted in public places.
The campaign posters are the properties of the owners who posted them on their private properties. Therefore, the right to use the said property is protected by the said provision of the Constitution.
Robredo spokesman Barry Gutierrez said Robredo was deeply concerned with what happened.
As a lawyer, as isang public servant na talagang mahalaga sa kanya yung exercise ng karapatan ng bawat mamamayan, lalo na nitong freedom of speech, people's campaign ito.
Two former officials of the commission also expressed their concerns that this might be interpreted as trespassing.
Kung illegal siya, di kasuhan mo ng illegal yung violation of the election code. Pero to take it down, and the process of taking it down involves, let's say, unwelcome entry sa private area, then that is, baka may problema yon.
Former Comelec Commissioner Rowena Guanzon also said on Twitter, if they enter in a private property without permission, then it is trespassing. Makalintal said supporters have the right to refuse entry to their homes.
Obviously, kung talagang ipipilit, wag lumaban. Wala ka namang magagawa, pero i-document.
Gutierrez said the camp of Robredo is considering taking legal actions against the Comelec. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Now, what really are the boundaries of the Comelec's Oplan Baklas? That big question and more with election lawyer attorney Enrique de la Cruz. Attorney Buko de la Cruz, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi Ed, at sa iyong mga taga-subaybay, good evening po.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me start off by backing up a bit. In the past ba, I'm sure in the past, nagkaroon na ng ganitong kaso. I'm not talking about the Bacolod issue, which was ruled on by the Supreme Court. Pero were there other cases in the past where there were clearly election paraphernalia in private property na binaklas ng Comelec?
Yes, the basis is the law. Ang ginagawa ng Comelec ay base naman sa Fair Elections Act. Maliwanag naman sa batas kung ano lang ang maximum size at kung saan lang dapat nilalagay ang mga election propaganda materials, yung mga vote for tarpaulins, no? Ito ay may specific areas kung saan dapat ilagay at may size 2x3 ang standard at 3x8 ang exception kapag ito ay nasa isang rally or headquarters, pero may limit ang oras at araw na ito gagamitin. No?
5 days and 1 day.
Hindi ito bago. Lagi ito ginagawa tuwing halalan. Nagbabaklas ng mga illegal na election campaign propaganda.
Yes, sir. Pero I'm referring precisely to yung mga paraphernalia in private properties. Kasi I think wala namang contention doon sa doon sa paraphernalia placed in public property or public spaces like waiting sheds and all that in the streets na hindi naman common poster areas. Pero pagdating po doon sa paglalagay ng mga postings doon sa private property, have there been examples in the past? Ilabas pa natin po yun, yung Bacolod kasi pag-usapan natin yung iba mamaya.
Yes, Ed, yung rule naman hindi nagbabago, Ed. Yung illegal campaign propaganda, yung oversized tarps, kahit saan mo ilagay, sa public o sa private, illegal yan. Hindi yan nagiging legal dahil lang nilagay mo sa loob ng bahay. Siguro ang sinasabi nila ay hindi pwedeng pasukin ang iyong bahay ng walang pahintulot. Tama yon. Pero illegal pa rin yung poster na yon. Illegal pa rin yung tarp na yon. So siguro sa pamamaraan na lang ng pag-i-implement, nagkakaproblema. Pero kung ang tanong ay, dati bang ginagawa na yan? May nabago ba sa batas? Wala naman pong nabago sa batas. Yung rule ng Comelec ay pareho din ng rule nila noong mga nakaraang taon.
So you're saying it's in the process of implementing the takedown of what Comelec believes to be illegally sized campaign materials?
Tama po, Sir Ed. Kung papasok ka sa isang pribadong property at walang pahintulot, bawal po yun. So I think doon nagkakaroon ng paglabag sa karapatang pantao.
Yes, sir. Let me bring in one more issue. In 2015, the Supreme Court ruled on yung tarpaulin, yung Team Buhay, Team Patay tarpaulin dun sa Bacolod Cathedral. Kung saan sinabi ng Comelec, abay bawal yan dahil oversize yan. It was, I think, 3x10 or 4x10 versus yung dapat na requirement lamang. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court, mukhang may preponderance yung o mukhang mas priority yung freedom of speech at private property. How do we interpret that kung gano'n? Kasi kinatigan ng Korte Suprema ang Bacolod Church.
Tama, Sir Ed, no? Magandang linawin natin kung bakit sinabi ng Korte Suprema na hindi saklaw o sakop ng Comelec yung ginawa ng Archdiocese of Bacolod in that case. Sabi ng Supreme Court, may distinction. No? Dalawa ang klase ng propaganda material. Yung advocacy tarps o yung mga pagpapahayag ng isang botante, yan ay sagrado at hindi saklaw ng mga panuntunan ng Comelec. So kahit oversized yan, pwede. Lalo na kung nasa private property. Ito yung mga advocacy. Ibig sabihin, boses ng botante. Pero kung yan ay boses ng kandidato, halimbawa, vote for ang nakalagay o patungkol partikular sa isang kandidato at pinopromote yung kanyang pagkandidatura, kahit ilagay mo yan sa private property, illegal yan basta oversized. So dapat liwanagin natin yun. Yung doon sa Archdiocese of Bacolod, advocacy tarp yun .
Yes, sir.
Team Buhay, Team Patay. Hindi ito mga material na makikita sa campaign propaganda ng mga kandidato. Ito yung pagpapahayag ng simbahan, partikular ng simbahan na yan, kung sino ang sinusuportahan nila base sa paniniwala tungkol sa RH Bill. Ito
Yes,
yung
sir.
sinabi ng Korte Suprema na sagrado. Ito yung hindi saklaw ng mga size limitations dahil ito ay freedom of expression. Pero kung poster ng kandidato, picture niya, obvious yan. Kahit yan ilagay mo sa private property, basta oversized, illegal yan.
Yes, sir. We're almost out of time. Actually, we're out of time. But I want to squeeze in one last question, sir. Pero isn't that as well, yung campaign paraphernalia, isn't that advocacy for or against the candidate? At the same time, yung pagdedeklara na Team Buhay o Team Patay, hindi ba yan also the church's way of saying, don't vote for these people, vote for this set of people? In that sense, di pareho sila.
Tama yun. Kaya nga ang distinction ay saan galing yung pagpapahayag. Kung ito'y galing sa botante at ang pagpapahayag niya ay particular, unique sa kanya, hindi nakikita sa materialis ng mga kandidato, obvious na ito ay freedom of expression. Pero kung yung tarpaulin, kamukha ng tarpaulin na pinapamigay din ng kandidato, hindi nagiging legal yan dahil lang sa nilagay mo sa loob ng iyong bahay o sa loob ng iyong bakod.
Okay, maraming salamat, Attorney Buco de la Cruz. That was election lawyer, Attorney Enrique de la Cruz Jr. But what exactly are Comelec's rules on campaign materials? Mobile journalist Yara Pascual tells us in this report.
Posters, mulls, tarpaulins, and even billboards. Campaign materials of candidates for the 2022 elections can be seen everywhere. But Comelec reminds that there are requirements needed to be followed. Otherwise, it will be deemed illegal. Comelec Resolution 10730 sets a strict sizing requirement for printed campaign materials. For example, pamphlets, leaflets, decals, or stickers cannot exceed the size of a bond paper. Likewise, size of posters made by cloth, paper, or carton should only be 2 by 5 feet. As for streamers, allowed sizing is 3 by 8 feet in public meetings or rallies. It also has to be removed within 24 hours. Meanwhile, signboards have to be 3 feet by 8 feet only. The resolution also states that the person or group who paid for the campaign materials and the name of the candidate should be included on the print regardless if it's free or a donation. Posting of campaign materials in public and private properties with no consent are also prohibited. Why then were campaign materials inside properties of volunteers removed during the kick-off of Oplan Baklas? This caused an outcry online. Comelec clarifies size limits apply even on posters inside private properties, but people who denounce the Comelec's actions says that the Comelec resolution is not a law and that it violates the rights to freedom of speech and expression. Recall that in 2015, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the Diocese of Bacolod for putting up a tarpaulin against reproductive health law. The judges also said that Comelec has no right to regulate the expression of private citizens. To those who want to file a complaint, the poll body says you are very much free to do so. Mobile Journal Yeda Pascual, we are One News.
These are the other big stories tonight. Presidential hopeful Senator Ping Lacson is asking the Senate to step in as the growing number of missing sabongeros remains unsolved. Is Robin Padilla in or out? The UniTeam does not seem to be united on whether or not the senatorial hopeful is part of their Senate slate. And Phil-Am skier Asa Miller's journey ends in the Beijing Winter Olympics after failing to complete the men's slalom event. More of these big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Edlin Gao.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. At least 26 sabongeros or cockfight enthusiasts have gone missing since January. That's according to authorities.
With few leads, the tandem of Senators Ping Lacson and Tito Soto is calling on the Senate to start looking into the matter. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez with the story.
As the cases of the missing sabongeros remain unsolved, the Lacson-Soto tandem has now called for a Senate inquiry. During their Meet the Press forum, former PNP Chief Ping Lacson and Senate President Tito Soto expressed alarm over the tens of cockfighters who have gone missing since January.
Hindi natin alam kung ano yung punot-dulo nito. Hindi lamang yung evil na dinudulot na ang sa sugal, pati itong nawawala pa mga sabongero.
If none of the members of the Senate presently are not interested, we can always ask the chairman of the Committee on Games to conduct an investigation.
Families of the victims already reached out to the two. Lacson added that the Philippine National Police is already pursuing a lead. According to the PNP Crime Investigation and Detection Group, 26 sabongeros are currently missing. They have formed a special task force to lead the investigation.
Right now, we are treating these cases as missing sabongeros in the absence of any concrete evidence that would indicate that there was a kidnapping case that is involved.
Last seen in cockpit arenas in Manila and 3 other provinces, the missing players were reportedly connected to an online sabong firm owned by businessman Atong Ang. The PNP CIDG has also identified a certain Julius Jovillo as a person of interest. Jovillo allegedly is the financier of 4 players in Laguna who went missing after withdrawing close to 200 million pesos from bets. Meanwhile, in a text message, Committee on Public Order Chairman Senator Bato de la Rosa said they are already planning to conduct an investigation. De la Rosa said he might pass a resolution requiring a probe if the situation remains unsolved. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, Phil-Am skier Asa Miller ends his journey in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics after failing to finish in the men's slalom event. Miller had a fine start in the first 30 seconds of his run but faltered midway in the Ice River course. This is the second time the 21-year-old registered a DNF or a did not finish. He also failed to complete the giant men's slalom event last Sunday. Miller vows to come back stronger and more confident as he targets the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. Meanwhile, Gilas Pilipinas is ramping up their preparations for next week's FIBA Asian World Cup qualifiers as they begin their training over at the Big Dome. Marty Bautista with the story.
Tickets for the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers are starting to sell like hotcakes at the Smart Araneta Coliseum. Tickets are available online starting 12 noon on Thursday, but fans can also purchase at the yellow gate of the Big Dome. Prices range from standing at 215 pesos to the most expensive seat at 530 pesos. Gilas Pilipinas started their training at the venue on Wednesday. 30 Ravenna, one of the Gilas pool members, watched the PBA games before the training session. For him, it was a chance to study how some of his would-be teammates play. The Gilas core is composed of TNT Katropa members.
Also, kasi hindi pa sila masyado nakapag-practice with us since they're with Talk and Text as well. I kinda see what their game is like. Baka magka-idea ako kung paano, kung ano yung kailangan ko gawin para makatulong sa kanila at makatulong sa team sa upcoming qualifying tournament.
Robert Bolek, who's also part of the pool, is ecstatic to be playing for the national team once again. Bolek first played for Gilas in the 2019 FIBA World Cup in China. As per the IATF guidelines, only fully vaccinated people aged 12 and above will be allowed inside the venue. Upon entrance, fans are required to present their vaccine cards, QC pass, and a government ID. Face masks are a must inside Araneta, while food and drinks are not allowed. Philippines will first play South Korea on February 24, Thursday at 6 p.m. This will be followed by matches against India and New Zealand on February 25 and 27. For News 5, Marty Bautista, We Are One News.
Time for another quick break. When we return, the top bets of the UniTeam do not seem to be on the same page regarding the inclusion of actor Robin Padilla in their Senate slate. Too early to say. The Department of Health reports a spike in COVID-19 cases, which some experts say might have been triggered by Valentine's Day. Winner, winner, chicken pageant. We give you a look at Libya's first ever chicken beauty contest. These and other big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Edwin Gao.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. Some trouble in the campaign trail as the UniTeam tandem of Marcos Jr. and Inday Sara have different takes on their senatorial lineup.
Senator Ping Lacson, meanwhile, bared that there is an ongoing plot for a demolition job against him. A look at the day's campaign trail in Gerard de la Peña's report.
The Lacson-Soto tandem is on the defensive after it received reports of a possible demolition job against their ticket. Lacson says supporters of another presidential candidate are making the plot after the aspirant felt alluded to in his Ubusin ang Magnanakaw campaign. Their camp has yet to verify the report, but says they remain undeterred.
Hindi naman kami titigil kasi I've been there, no? Na sabi ko 2001 hanggang 2010. Yan naman talagang sanay na tayo sa bakbakan ganyan, yung black propaganda. So we'll still continue with that narrative. After all, yun naman talaga yung problema ng bansa natin.
Meanwhile, over at the UniTeam, they get another endorsement, but this time only for Vice Presidential bet Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. Ruling One Cebu party endorsed the presidential daughter, but made no mention if they're backing Ferdinand Marcos Jr. The two, together with their Senate slate, recently visited Ilocos Norte, Marcos Jr.'s bailiwick. But things became confusing during the rally after Duterte announced that actor Robin Padilla is their 12th senatorial candidate. Marcos Jr., however, said otherwise.
It's an unusual arrangement that he's not technically within the 12, but he is considered a friend of the team.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno likewise made his way to the north as he visited La Union. But unlike the UniTeam, which had multitudes of supporters in the region, the welcome for Moreno and his team was more lukewarm. But he remains hopeful that he can be an alternative for some Ilocanos.
I can be their alternative. Saka masaya na ako makakuha ng kaunting boto sa lugar na ito. Every vote, kumbaga, bawat boto mahalaga.
Over in southern Luzon, Senator Manny Pacquiao visited Montalban, Rizal. In line with his fight against corruption, Pacquiao bared that he plans on naming House Deputy Speaker Brother Eddie Villanueva as his corruption czar.
Gusto ko yun yung plano niya about sa pagsugpo ng korupsyon. Alam ko na ang lahat ng gagawin namin ay para sa Panginoon at para sa bayan.
And as for Vice President Leni Robredo, she went for arrest on Thursday and just met supporters online via a live video. She also signed a covenant with persons with disabilities, vowing to involve them in crafting policies for the sector. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Manila priests held a penitential walk to pray for discernment among Filipino voters in the 2022 elections. The walk, which also marks the 150th anniversary of Gomburza's martyrdom, started with a mass in Manila Cathedral, going through the Gomburza Memorial in Luneta and ending in the shrine of Nuestra Senora de Guia in Ermita. Reverend Bishop Teodoro Bacani says religious leaders have the freedom to choose and name their political candidates and the freedom to campaign against anybody unfit to lead the country.
Kung mayroon silang kumbinsido na hindi dapat mamuno dahil makasasama sa kabutihang pangsambayanan at makasasama sa dignidad ng tao, pwede nilang tutulan ito publicly.
This time on the COVID-19 pandemic, the OCTA Research Group reports a spike in the number of new COVID-19 infections in Metro Manila after Valentine's Day. In a tweet, OCTA Research Fellow Guido David says the 632 new COVID cases in NCR went above their January 24 projection. Health Secretary Francisco Duque, however, explains that it is still too early to call it Valentine's Day spike as it has only been a few days and the cases would typically be reflected after 2 weeks.
Yan ay pinapavalidate ko pa kasi yung kaso natin on Valentine's Day is only 2,700 plus. So I do not see paano naging spike yon unless ibig sabihin nila nag-cause ng spike after some time. Could be after 2 weeks. That's too early to tell.
And here are some of the other big stories around the globe. Western officials dispute Russia's claim that it has withdrawn troops from the Ukrainian border, saying around 7,000 more troops have been added. A senior U.S. official says the increase renders Russia's assertion of withdrawal false, warning that Russian President Vladimir Putin's public openness to diplomacy was a guise. Ukrainian intelligence, Britain, and NATO officials also assert that there is no proof of Russia withdrawing its forces despite the footage released by its defense ministry. A 6-year-old girl was found alive and well underneath a staircase in a New York home after 2 years of going missing. Authorities allege the girl was kidnapped by her non-custodial biological parents. On Monday, police raided and searched the house of the little girl's grandfather after receiving a tip. After removing stepboards on a closed staircase, the girl was found in a makeshift room underneath, hiding with her mom, Kimberly. The parents and grandfather, Kirk Schultes Sr., were arrested and will face custody charges, while the girl was released to her legal guardian.
Filipino music icon Lea Salongas joined the list of stars calling for a stop to Asian hate in the United States. This comes after Korean-American producer Christina Yuno Lee was stabbed to death on Sunday. Lee is the third person of Asian descent to fall victim to a hate crime in New York in the past 2 months. Speaking of Asians in the U.S., Filipino-American artists Her and Saweetie are raising the Filipino flag high and proud. This as they released new music. In her Twitter account, Her announced the release of their collaboration with the hashtag Siniganggang. She also added a Philippine flag. The Filipino Twitter community was quick to notice the cultural references in her tweet and express support for both artists. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
We've all come to know beauty pageants, but have you ever heard of a chicken pageant?
That's right. Libya's capital, Tripoli, recently held its first chicken beauty pageant, which drew a host of visitors and participants from across the country. The competition aims to find the best-looking chicken from each breed. The chickens are judged by their color, size, and shape, as well as the shine of their feathers.
The prices of the ornamental chickens range between $50 and $800, with prize winners fetching even higher. Organizers said the event was held not only to promote chicken breeders, but to also offer an opportunity for the youth to know about the craft of breeding the birds.
Bok, pag mas maganda ba yung manok? Mas okay ba sa sabong? Mas magaling?
Sabong pala inisip ko. Inisip ko luto eh.
Hindi, wala lang. Kasi parang pageant eh. Baka okay din sa sabungan.
Hindi. Pagandahan nga eh. Kailangan macho yung manok mo.
Oh. Ako mas masarap yun.
Well, actually, you know what really surprises me more is I would have expected them to have a camel beauty pageant and a chicken beauty pageant.
Oo nga, no? Oo nga. But this one is new, pero...
Kasi sa Pilipinas, meron tayong kalabaw beauty pageant.
Talaga?
Sa
ano
Bulacan
sinusuot
dati.
nila?
Ito yung question and answer portion.
That wraps up today's big story. Catch us here toward 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.